Okay, welcome back, everybody. Right now, this afternoon, we want to look at the other side of the equation that I talked about earlier today, which was moving from healthcare and conventional health and their focus on supporting kids in schools, supporting the schools, and now focusing in part on some of the school-based activities that we refer to as whole health learning activities. I tried to come up with a catch-all phrase for the garden and mindfulness and the teaching kitchen and physical activities that bolster cognition and outdoor learning, and that's the only thing I came up with. So that's why we're the Center for Whole Health Learning in K-12. I want to, if we can get started here, we're a little bit late. So first I would like to introduce Laura Bakosh. She's co-founder of Inner Explorer, and she's a mindfulness teacher, a researcher, and has been involved with schools directly for a number of years, building Inner Explorer with Janice Houlihan, who is here. And she's got a bachelor's from Boston College, which is my old neighborhood, and was trained in MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction at UMass, and is an All-State Northwestern University nonprofit fellow. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you. I do, hopefully it works. Thank you all so much. Wow. Goodness.
It has wheels on it.
It's really great to be here, and thank you all for joining us today. So I'd love to talk to you about a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. I have a couple of slides that hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to move forward. Just hitting this button. Hitting the big green button. All right. So, we've talked a lot about prevention today. We've heard a number of speakers talk about what are some of the things that we can do to help prevent some of these disorders from ever developing, and what can we do to actually mitigate those that have developed from getting worse. And so we'll talk a little bit about mindfulness in that vein and how it's been being used across the country in about 4,500 schools already to do just that. So I wanted to share a little bit of detail. We've talked ad nauseum about the crisis, and we all, I think, fully understand it. But what I will suggest is that stress and the effects of stress on the brain and the body are a major factor in physical health problems and mental health problems. You probably all already know that. And most of the students, the majority of the students in our country are reporting very high levels of stress. We know that we have a violence and a gun problem in the United States, and we know that we have an academic problem, and those things are all connected, right? In the United States of America today, less than half the children are at grade level in any subject. It's actually like 40% of the children are at grade level. And in many states and in many cities, it's worse. And that means that what we are facing as these children get out of school is catastrophic, because they're not going to be prepared for jobs, college, career, and so on. So it's really important to understand some of the why from a biological standpoint. So we know, kids are stressed, but what does that really mean in the body? Well, it means that the brain structure shifts, right? So children become more connected to their fight or flight or freeze instinct, right? So violence increases, behavior problems increase, and children don't want to come to school, right? That's fight, flight, or freeze. And they become less likely to use their higher order cognitive resources to learn. So if you're an educator in the room now, you probably already know that there could be a child in front of you in class sitting there, but not actually taking in the information that you're trying to teach, because the network part of the brain associated with learning is just not active. When the limbic system triggers, higher order functions go out the window. And over time, when we talk about chronic stress, it shifts brain structure so that the brain shrinks. And I will ask you, this is research from 2 decades now. And if you knew your brain's going to shrink if you don't do something consistently to mitigate stress. Would you do it? We've known this. And we know for children who are in massive brain development phase when they're in school, to not do something, I mean, I love several of the speakers said, like, this is a matter of such critical importance, and we know ways to start to fix it. We just need the will in order to do it. So mindfulness is a field that's growing. You've probably all heard about it. Many schools are already starting to adopt these practices, but what we will share is that mindfulness is something that needs to be done regularly in order to be effective. So a Mindful Monday is an awesome start, but you need to do it every day in order to mitigate stress consistently, because we all have so much stress bearing down on us every single day. And to the brain, social media issues, bullying, lack of food or housing operates the same way in the brain. So the brain is gonna trigger and stop thinking. So I wanna share a very brief story, and it's a true story. 100 years ago, this country was facing a major health crisis. And many of you may not know that. I'm sure very few of you are 100 in the room right now. So the crisis sounded really similar to what we're facing today in mental health. It was causing a ton of pain. People were missing work. There was just enormous amounts of issues. We didn't have enough clinicians to deal with the problem. And automatically people thought, we need to train more people to take care of this, more clinicians. We need more meds because people were in a lot of pain. We need more facilities to treat all of the people that are being affected by this crisis. And the thing that changed, and you won't believe this, it was the dental health crisis of the early 1900s, and what changed was the advent of the toothbrush. The toothbrush. So think about it, right? When you eat, all these particles, and if you're not getting rid of them every day, you're eventually gonna have gum disease and tooth decay. And so that isn't the only answer. People still have issues. We need dentists, we need all of these things. It's just not a crisis anymore. So 100 years ago, this country was facing a dental health crisis, and it went away when people started brushing their teeth every day. And what I wanna suggest, without touching my microphone, is that if we do practices like all of us are gonna talk about, and if we do things like mindfulness every day where we're attenuating stress, the mental health crisis that we're facing today will be resolved. Kids are still gonna have issues. I'm not saying everybody's gonna magically be better, but it won't be a crisis. And the resources that we currently have will be able to handle that. So mindfulness, I think you probably all know what it is, but this is the CDC's definition. It's just paying attention. We're not sending kids off into Never Never Land. We're inviting them to experience themselves every single day for just 5 or 10 minutes. It's simple. Tons of people in the real world, outside of K-12 education, are already doing this. Every branch of the US military, every single college or university that I've Googled, and there's been a lot, have mindfulness embedded in what they're doing with their students and their staff. And many of them are doing research on this field. The CDC, the Surgeon General, actually has a number of practices you can find on YouTube that he's leading mindfulness practices. So this isn't something that's new. It's not something that's not well studied. We need the energy to get it into schools more regularly. We're in 4,000, we wanna be in 130,000, right? Which is how many schools there are in our country. So like teeth brushing, it's inexpensive, it's easy, right? You don't need an expert to teach you how to do it. Once you learn, you're good to go. And that's what we're trying to bring into schools with mindfulness. So it's a simple mode. The teacher presses play, all the students and the teacher participate together. The teacher doesn't need to be an expert. He or she just needs to know how to press a button, and then they practice for 5 or 10 minutes. The first instruction is closing your eyes or looking downward, and then there's a guided practice, and then it's done and they move on. The research is phenomenal. They have better grades, better test scores, better behavior. Even educators tell us it's their favorite time of the day. We've reduced secondary trauma in educators, which is a big deal. And the other thing, the little app on the side is for families. So it's not an app that kids use, it's an app that parents and caregivers can use, and even aunties, grandparents, anybody that's in that child's life. So if your child is in a classroom running this program, you can get the same exact practice. So we're pushing stress reduction into the home, we're providing the shared experience for families and their children, and it's transparent, right? Because families want to know what's happening in schools and they want to understand, and this is a great way to be able to do that. So, for those of us that joined our little breakout, this is just an example of what happens when we do this. This is Dave. We came up on stage and got the award, Dave McMean from a Tampa school. This school has 80% homeless children in this school, and they're exceeding every state, federal, and district outcome guide. I mean, these guys are, and this is through COVID, where every school in America is telling us how difficult it is for kids to learn. They haven't had a behavior problem in like 3 years. And there was an NPR article about them a couple of months ago, and one of the teachers said, the kids used to fight a lot, back in the day. And she said, now when somebody succeeds, they give each other hugs and high fives. So it's not just about the data and the scores, it's that kids feel better, they're more connected to one another, and the whole school community is kind of building around that. So last but not least, this is an example of kind of the transition. So my last comment is for all of you that are here in the room or online watching this, we would love your help. And I think there have been calls to action from some of the other speakers, but kids need us. We know some things that we can do now to help, and we just need the will to be able to kind of organize and get into more places so that more kids can benefit from these really important tools. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. The mindfulness is hygiene story, which is extremely powerful.